There we go. And now let's let in this big group of people that have been very patiently waiting in the waiting room. There we go. So welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. I see some familiar faces. I see some new faces. I see more people trying to get through the door. So I'm just pausing for a second to make sure everybody gets through the door because we don't want to leave anybody behind before I start talking. I want to welcome everybody. You are here for the free Friday webinar, or at least I hope that's why you're here. Maybe you just came to hang out with us. That's okay too. I'm just going to do a couple of very, very quick announcements because I am not the star of the show. Not today anyway. So just briefly, yes, today we're going to turn things over in just one moment to Seth and Travis, and they will tell you. I think I wrote yesterday, like the webinar, something like the webinar is free, but the content is priceless. And I totally, not to put any pressure on them or anything, but I know that's going to be true. Because actually in May, we have a very special situation, I realized, with our webinars. But first, I want to remind you that this is recorded, and many of our Friday webinars now, with the speaker's permissions, are going on to the USDLA TV YouTube channel. So more free content for you. So if you missed anything, go check out the YouTube channel because it might be there. If not, it may be in the member archive, and I can talk to you more about that if anybody wants to become a member of USDLA. But anyway, the last time we had a webinar, we had the amazing Dr. DeGuzman. And whether you are in telehealth or not, I encourage you to go check out her webinar because a lot of the content, a lot of the ideas that she had were really about community and how you get communities involved in different initiatives and things like that. In her situation, it happened to be around telehealth and it was with libraries, but there's a lot of great content in there, whether that is your space or not. It's one of the things I like about USDLA. I always learn from people in spaces that are not necessarily my own. I may not be in telehealth, but I found it very informative. All right, coming up in the next couple of weeks. Also, as I said, May is very special. I realize all of our May speakers are backed by popular demand. All of them have spoken for us before, and so I know that you all love them and you will be back to see them again. We have Sheila Fry. She's going to be talking about really engagement. It's not just about discussion boards. She talks about all sorts of stuff. And then followed by that, we'll have Lisa Clark. She'll be touching on AI. I know that's a hot topic for everybody, but she'll be taking it from a different angle than we are today. And then followed the last Friday of May, we're going to have Dr. Seaman, Dr. Jeff and Julia Seaman, and Dr. Johnson. They did a survey. They did a pulse survey last fall. USDLA was honored to participate as one of the partners in that survey. You might have seen in the newsletter an infographic a couple of months ago that came out that had some of the survey results. They're going to be back to talk more about the whole thing. So you don't want to miss that. And that is really a lead into our conference. Both Jeff and Julia Seaman will be back speaking at the virtual portion of our conference. And if you didn't know the dates, you can come on site with us in St. Louis, June 17th through 20th. But we have virtual days, both in June and July, because we wanted to create an entire learning journey for everybody to get as much benefit as possible. Because we love you and because you're here today, there's a discount code on the screen. It applies to both the virtual and on-site. Get you 10% off. Hey, that doesn't hurt, right? So grab that code. It's for people who have not already registered, obviously. If you have, we love and we'll see you there soon. All right, more people coming in. See, Seth and Travis, I knew y'all would be totally popular.
We had them at AI.
You did. You totally did. And you might have had, I don't know. I think you might have had them at wellness too, because there's a lot of people that are very concerned about that. Just last couple of little things before I turn it over. If you do attend the conference, whether virtual or on site, because this will all be streamed, we have some amazing featured speakers. We have Don Mann, former SEAL Team 6, who's going to talk about how do we overcome challenges and limitations in all these crazy times that we live in, or at least I'm in some crazy times. I don't know. Maybe some of you have a calmer existence. I hope so. We have Joe Salustio, who is co-author of Commencement about the future of higher education. And he will be there as part of our last day of the on-site, what we're calling our leadership summit. And he's going to be there talking about lessons learned from all these university and college presidents and what's going on with them with the changing times. And of course, the ever popular Robbie Melton, he will be talking about, yes, AI and other all things tech. She always brings some new gadgets and some new cool stuff. You never know exactly what she's going to do, but I do know she's going to help you to create your own chatbot. I know that's one of the things that we'll be doing. And finally, before I leave, also at the conference, you get to attend the award ceremony and you get to meet some people and talk to them about their projects. Some of them did some really innovative and cool projects, and so you could learn a lot from them as well. And of course, I have to thank our sponsors because without them, we couldn't do free stuff like this. So a huge thank you to our gold and silver sponsors on the screen. If you use any of them, please reach out to them and catch up and see what your reps have to have that's new and different. And then finally, our bronze sponsors and our other partners and exhibitors. So with that, I am going to stop because that's enough about all of that. If anybody wants to know anything else about the conference or anything, I will just drop some links into the chat while Seth and Travis are getting started. But I just want to thank Seth and Travis for being here today. And I really, they're both amazing. So I guess that's all I can say. Like I said, you've been here before, Seth, and you're back by popular demand. So obviously, we want to hear what you got to say. So welcome back.
Well, thank you so much for the welcome and for the opportunity to be here again. You also are amazing, as evidenced by the way that you made all of that sound extremely exciting, and now I want to do all of them. So yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. I was struck by that title, why 1,300 administrators and teachers say they're not ready for AI. If I had to guess at the reason for that, I would imagine that a lot of it has to do with fear. And I use the word ignorance, but not in any sort of like aggressive way. It's not a willful ignorance, but there is I think, a lack of understanding of what this really is. And we are here to begin to combat that for some of our participants here today. And I also want to welcome my colleague, Travis. How you doing today, Travis?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful Friday. I'm down here in Atlanta, Georgia. Springtime is just gorgeous. So yeah, I'm really happy to be here and talk about this exciting topic, truly.
Awesome. And I am in Portland, Oregon. I would love to hear from you all in the chat, and we will be active today on the chat. Where are you? Where in the world are you? Please start with that question. We'd love to see those answers cascading into our chat so that we know who we are speaking with. And let's get started here. So we are talking about leveraging AI for teacher and student wellness, and we will break that down for you. I think that when people hear this topic, the title, there's a natural skepticism that AI is something that can be used for wellness. We love that. We believe that you should be skeptical of a whole lot of things when it comes to AI. So that is actually one of the cornerstones of the mindset that we feel that you should have in order to be able to get everything that you can out of this technology, this new, uniquely human technology. I'm seeing that we've got people from New Hampshire and New Orleans, Kansas, Virginia, Tennessee, New York, Philly, Central Florida, Brooklyn in the house, and more Pennsylvania. That is fantastic. All over the country. Isn't distance learning fantastic? Isn't it neat that we can all be here in the same place at the same time, yet all in different places? Oh, and international, we've got Ottawa. So my name is Seth Fleischauer. I've been a USDLA member for 15 years. I think that might be 16 now. I started Banyan Global Learning in 2009, doing a daily distance learning program to students in Taiwan. That's how I dipped my toe in this water, and I've been swimming in the oceans of it ever since. I live in Portland, Oregon, as I said, and if you Google Sad Mets fan right now, you will see that I am a meme. I'll just leave it at that. And then we have Travis. Introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, hey guys, Travis here, lifelong educator, really been a high school science teacher. My focus has usually been in science and went all the way down into 5th grade. My whole family is filled with teachers. I'm a tech optimist. My love for technology and science translated into the classroom. And then as soon as AI began to take off, I really fell in love with it and have been drawn to it. And this topic is really exciting for me.
Excellent. I am also an optimist, but I have a healthy dose of skepticism. I think Travis does too, and we'll talk about that today. Our agenda is to talk a little bit about the basics, talk about AI for wellness, and then talk about mindset shift. I feel that so many of these trainings really are about shifting your mindset and getting you into a position where you can make the most out of this tech for you. This is unlike most technology. Most technology, it's like, okay, there's a button I push, and every time I push that button, I get this thing out. This is a technology that is more complicated than that. It depends on the context. It depends on the person. It depends on your depth of knowledge within a given field as to whether or not this technology is going to actually be helpful for you or not. And so we believe that the best way to approach this is with a mindset of skepticism, curiosity, and growth. And we'll talk about that. So welcome. I saw where you guys are from. Thank you for putting that in there. And now in the chat, I would love to hear how long you've been using Gen AI. So when we talk about Gen AI, generative AI, we are talking about ChatGPT, Claude, Magic School, if you've used that. I get Travis, when did ChatGPT 3 come out? Because that's when you started using it, right?
Yeah, that was, I believe, gosh, I'm mixed up. It was either 2 or 4 years ago. Why can't I think of it? It wasn't 4 years ago. 2 years ago. Time has flown by. It's incredible. I think 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, if you tell me anything happened in either 2020, 2021, 2022, or 2023, I would believe you, because all of those years just kind of blend together. But we're getting some responses here that it's like 6 months to a year or more. That makes sense. When the explosion of ChatGPT happened, I think that it got to 100 million users in like a week or something like that, 2 weeks. Pretty crazy. The most quickly adopted technology of all time. And we're also in the age where that's just going to happen because of the way that we are all interconnected. And if something takes culture by storm, it's going to take all cultures by storm. Yeah, so that's about the time frame we're working with here. That's good to know. And I would love to know, for what purpose are you using generative AI? So that might be a little bit of a longer answer. And obviously, we're going to talk about some of the things that you can use it for in relation to teacher and student wellness here today. But in the chat, for what purpose are you using generative AI? And another question that you can throw in there is, how do you feel about AI? When we talk about the impact of AI on teacher and student wellness, we think that there's kind of this ignored field of like, how does this feel to use this, right? Like, this is weird. Like, it's a weird technology. It spits out some crazy stuff. And you can talk to it like it's a person, which is something that I don't know how old people are. I'm in my 40s. This was a huge part of like science fiction media when I was a kid, right? Is that eventually we're going to have Terminators who are going to come and destroy us and or protect us. And we're kind of venturing into that realm now of these tools actually being human-like. And it is unavoidable, I think, that we begin to anthropomorphize them. We can talk a little bit about how and why you should not do that necessarily, but the ways in which it is somewhat similar to interacting with a human. And if that's similar for us with decades of life before these tools existed, imagine kids being exposed to this technology in a time when they have not yet fully formed their human relationships. I think that it's inevitable that we're coming across a period where there will be AI friends. And we won't understand it because we're old and we didn't grow up that way, but kids will be going in that direction. And so I think that when you talk about wellness and social and emotional skills, I think it's really critical to bring that into the discussion around AI, around generative AI, because of its human-like qualities. Travis, what do we have in the chat here about how people are using AI?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, clearly we have a room full of educators, and yeah, from whether you're in the classroom or not, I see researchers here that are somewhat, it seems, well versed, right? Wide variety of things, from finding research to finding resources to helping with research, idea generation, right? The whole gamut of stuff. So this is exciting. I'm curious as we go on here, and we think about the idea of wellness, and curious to see how all of you who are clearly already using it, where you think it aligns with this idea of wellness. Because I think a lot of this, we talk about mindset, and you're probably talking to coworkers about this, ones who might be skeptical or have questions, or administrators, or also parents of students. And so I think part of this, right, I love the way people who already know how to use this on their own tasks. Part of this is having that mind shift so that you can also communicate about this, because it's just going to accelerate, as I think you all probably would agree with, and being able to talk about it with others who are not using it is going to be important. That's for anything in life, right? Sort of whether you're advocating or just talking about why you're using it, because people are going to have questions about it. So I love it. We clearly have experienced on some level AI users in this room, so it's awesome.
Yeah, I want to highlight one of the responses from Igwan Rakowski, saying that provides good information, a good amount of information, but need to check other resources to verify. Very good to have that skepticism. Drafting communications and tasks that would be time consuming, this can be a time saver. That is part of the wellness argument here, that save time can contribute to teacher wellness and can reduce the amount of stress. Assisting with instructional design, I love that part of it because it does have this vast library of knowledge and frameworks that you can consult when you're trying to bend what you have to what you need it to be. This is a requisite slide of all AI PDs where we say, hey, by the way, AI is not new. You see the timeline here goes back all the way back to 1950. Anybody who has an Alexa, anybody who has a Siri, anybody who's used personalized learning software in their classrooms. These are all examples of AI that have been around for quite some time and have integrated themselves into our lives. So the question is, what's the buzz about? What's new? And what's new is the generative pre-trained transformers, right? Or generative AI. GPT, Chat GPT, that's what it stands for. Generative meaning that it creates things, right? Pre-trained meaning that it's been trained on a whole bunch of information. In this case, most of the words on the internet have been like thrown into this machine, and then it analyzes it and then figures out how it's going to respond to questions based on how those questions have been responded to over and over and over again on the internet. And then transformer implies that it's actually operating on multiple levels at once. So it's not just giving you an answer, it's also checking for grammar and syntax and some other language requirements in order to communicate something clearly. Kind of like us, we are GPTs, right? We generate information. We have been trained on all of the words that we've ever heard and read and been exposed to in our lives. And we are operating on multiple levels, right? So we kind of do this too. I joke that I like to refer to my own GPT sometimes in order to be able to get to generate an answer. I want to highlight my podcast. It's called Make It Mindful. I have another podcast called Why Distance Learning that Valerie has been on. But this is my other podcast, and I've interviewed a lot of people about AI. Here's a list of the ones that I would highlight for you all. And a lot of what I've learned has been from these conversations. Justin Reich is an MIT professor at Teaching Systems Lab, and I asked him the other day, how should people approach AI when it comes to AI in education? What mindset would you like them to have? And his advice was that the more you understand how these things work, the better you will be able to analyze the responses for whether or not they meet your needs. And so we're going to do a little exercise right here. And this is going to be, this will be interesting. You guys have to pay close attention because I'm going to be calling on people to contribute, okay, in order in the chat. So we're going to GPT, okay? First of all, can I get the first person to pop up in the chat? Give me a problem that you are looking to solve. Actually, give me like a wellness question, right? So like a question about your wellness. Could it be something where like you have a routine and there's something that's not going well, you want to explore more, something about your personal wellness. I might think of like my meditation practice. I've had some challenges like staying focused, right? So a question might be like, how can I deepen my meditation practice? And we've got the first response is, how can I sleep deeper? How can I sleep more deeply? So here's what we're going to do, Valerie. You ready for this?
I am ready.
You're actually the one who gave me this idea. Who should I credit for this idea? Because you had it from someone else.
You should credit Scott Provence, who's also up in your neck of the woods. Scott Provence.
Awesome.
Who was
Well,
also
thank
a
you,
former
Scott.
speaker of ours. Yep.
Very cool. So we're going to GPT right now. We are going to respond to this question, how can I sleep more deeply? But we are going to go one person at a time, and each person is going to add a single word, okay? A single word. This is the order we're going to go in. We're going to go Valerie, I'm going to go, then Travis, then Robert, Christine, Grant, Bill, Ali. You guys are next, okay? So Valerie, what is the first word in the response to the question, how can I sleep more deeply? How can I sleep deeper? Okay, so have you, Travis?
Tried.
Okay, Robert, what's the next word? Have you tried, and then what? Let's see if this works in the chat.
Or they can unmute.
Oh yeah, you could unmute as well. Have you tried stretching? Okay. Christine, what is the next? Oh, good. Have you tried stretching before, Grant? Going, Bill? 2, Ali? I think we're all thinking the same word. Maybe 2 different words, I guess. Sensing a delay. Valerie and Travis, on the count of 3. What's
there it is.
There we go. There it is, bed. Okay. Have you tried stretching before going to bed? Okay. So the reason we answered this question in this weird way is because this is how these machines work, right? They are simply predicting the next word in a sequence of words. And the first words in the sequence of words is the prompt that you give it. In this case, the prompt was, how can I sleep deeper? And then we started with Valerie, went to me, went all around the room, each person adding one word to the response. I want to try this just to pique a little bit of curiosity. I want to try this in one of the common text-based GPTs that we can use. So I'm going to go over to ChatGPT. I have it in 3.5. I subscribe to 4. But I'm going to have this in 3.5. How do I sleep more deeply? Now, remember, this is doing, the way this is answering it is the exact same way that we just did it. Obviously, it's doing it a bit faster. It is a single brain instead of many. And it's not requiring us to hear the other response in order to do it. But you can see there is like, wow, a whole bunch of advice here. I'm wondering if stretching is one of a comfortable sleep environment, watch your diet, exercise regularly. You know what? I'm going to have, I don't see stretching in here. Can it be helpful to stretch before bed? And in this way, you know, we're kind of using this as like just a much better Google, really. Google's kind of broken. Got kind of broke by its own business model. And so in this way, you know, we're getting a deeper answer, one that's more specific to exactly what we're looking for. Absolutely, stretching before bed can be beneficial. Here's how it can help improve. So we've got more information there. And you know what? This is all too much to read. Can you summarize this in 4 bullet points? Just because it's a lot for us to do right there. Here's the summarized version: relax tension and release, stress reduction, improve circulation, muscle recovery. So those are the reasons that stretching can be good before bed. Just for fun, I want to see if Claude comes up with anything different. This is just another GPT. I'm going to use the exact same prompt and just go there. I like Claude a lot, especially for writing. Sleep schedule, bedtime routine. It's a lot of the same information for sure. As you get to know, limit caffeine and alcohol. I don't think that was on the other one. As you get to know these GPTs, you can use them for different things. We recommend or at least this is how I've gotten to know them thus far, right? ChatGPT is a workhorse. It's fairly neutral. It's to get S done, and Claude, I think, is a little bit more intellectual. It's good for writing, and it's got like actually kind of a personality. It tries to be funny sometimes. Gemini is very user friendly, and it just wants to help you, right? Like it is like, please let me help you now. Perplexity, I like because it's great for search. It will give you specific citations, which none of the other ones really do. So you can check those against those citations to make sure that it's getting information from the right place. Diffit can be great for student-facing resources. This is more teacher-based stuff. You can put a video in there and it'll generate a lesson plan based on the video. And Magic School, which we'll explore a little bit today, does a lot of the prompting for you if you don't want to do that prompting. So Travis, let me hand it over to you here. When we are talking about AI's impact on wellness, what are we talking about?
Yeah, and actually really quickly, I love the little exercise we just did. And Seth, you were talking about us being a GPT. Try what we just did, try doing that. We all have predictive text on our phones, right? That's been around for, more than a decade, right? You start typing something and it guesses your next word. Start typing in, have you tried stretching before bed, right? And go word by word. You're not going to get that answer. Obviously, we didn't ask it any question, but, think about, even Seth said before that final word bed, he was like, we're all thinking the same thing, right? And why are we thinking that same thing? Because we know the question and we're thinking about each word as it appears and as it relates, even when Bill added the word to, right? Going to, right? There's a clear syntax there that we know and expect. We all probably could have guessed that to was going to be the next word, because again, we're all thinking the same way. We're thinking like an LLM. We're thinking on multiple layers. As we're coming up with that sentence, we're remembering the prior sentence. We're thinking about the words that have been said and the words that are going to be said. So that is kind of when you think about how an LLM works. That is what's happening. And compare it with, like, even go to Google and type, have you tried stretching? And it's not going to say before bed. It's going to give you a million different things. So just wanted to throw that out there as another difference. Okay, so are you curious, right? You guys came in here, the title's about wellness. So how does AI impact wellness? I don't know if you have thought about this at all. I am kind of curious, was that, why did you guys come to this? What drew you into this session? Do you guys always come to these Friday sessions? Or, are you intrigued by the idea of wellness and AI? Is that a new sort of framing for you? Just kind of curious as to what specifically brought you here. Christine's curious about the topic. And we'll listen to, we'll read some more as they pop in. From our perspective, right? Wellness comes in a lot of different ways. Wellness is subjective. We all, have different ways that we find wellness. But one sort of universal thing is this idea of saving time. Because when you have time, you can use it for the things that you find bring you wellness. So if we have saved time in general, that is going to lead to probably a happier person and a happier teacher. And so this can be both personal, but then of course, professional. So some of you are using this, you talked about the ways that you use AI, and probably some of those things, most of the ones you listed seem to me as clear time savers. One of you even specified, right, that it like get rid of the mundane tasks. And that's great. Frees you up for other things. Does it actually save you time and allow you to sit back on a hammock and read a book? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it just allows you to do more work, but you're still saving time there. So that's really key. But then on the other side, there is a direct impact on wellness here, not just for your own social, well-being, but also for the classroom. When we talk about wellness in the classroom, we're talking about creating a supportive learning environment. So you can go and create lesson plans, you can create materials, right? These sort of things that you have to do day in and day out. But there are ways of using AI that actually make the learning environment a little bit better for students. We're talking about personalized learning, right? Tailoring assignments based on what students are interested in. You are teaching about food webs, get some help from AI. Your students are into Pokemon. Redo the quiz and have it written in sort of the face of Pokemon. The questions will still hit your objectives, but the students reading them and thinking about these questions will internalize it better because it's things they're interested in. Right? Then there's social emotional learning issues. Students, there's a whole epidemic of epidemics that are happening right now, and AI is not going to solve all that. but it can help and it can really have a direct impact on teachers. So we'll get more into that. Strong feelings about AI. Like, obviously, I think, you guys here seem to be enthusiasts. There are people on the other side of the spectrum, rightly so, who are skeptical. This is a hot topic. And so, wellness and emotions go hand in hand, right? And then finally, kind of the core of what we believe, we want to grow as teachers. We're lifelong educators. We're always trying to grow our practice. Even teachers who have their file cabinets of lesson plans always go back, right, and try to think, how can I improve it the next year? That is core to who we are as people, I think, if you're in this profession. And for growth, it's curiosity and skepticism. Those two things kind of go hand in hand in a circle, and that's what leads to growth. So that's kind of in a nutshell how we feel about AI and wellness. Going back to the chat here, let's see here and why we came in here. Let's see, Rebecca, curiosity about how to better use AI to be helpful to our student body, right? I mean, this is all about, we use this for ourselves, but we're doing this for students. And are there wellness benefits to AI beyond saving time? Love it, Grant. Okay. Okay, so speaking of saving time, let's start there. What would you do with 4 to 6 more hours per week? So before you even answer that, right, let's thinking about this. Oh, and yeah, you can see Seth used some image AI here, and he asked it to make it a little more happier, right? If you have 4 to 6 more hours per week in your life, you're probably going to be happier. So we can go from that image, and Seth said, let's make it a little happier. I think that was his prompt. And we see the smiley teacher, a smiley in there. So what would you do, right? We're hearing, okay, sleep deeper. But as you're thinking about it, this idea of saving time, you've probably thought about it in what you've done, but this has sort of been documented. I think a lot of us have heard of McKinsey, the consulting firm, one of the largest consulting firms in the world. And just last year, they put out a report, and in sort of the abstract at the beginning of it, they said they estimate that it saves 5 hours a week of in producing material. So teachers can save 5 hours a week just from that sort of lesson plan creation, content creation side. 5 hours a week, 1 hour per day of, and teachers work 7 days a week. So a little bit less than 1 hour per day that you're saving. That is powerful. Think about not only yourself, but your own classroom. Like, what are the things in your classroom that you wish you spent more time on? And imagine you have 45 more minutes to do that. I think that's a really powerful idea. Spend more time with family and friends, nature. I mean, absolutely. Right now, again, I can't say that the time saved is going to lead to that. What I found is when I start diving into AI and start using it, it can lead me down in rabbit holes that I end up spending just as much work time. But the other side, it's not just saving time; it's also sparking imagination, creativity, inspiration. And you get that. I think you've all probably touched on that since you've used it already. Yes, Seth.
Yeah, and let's keep this in mind. Keep the how you would say, what you would do with your save time as we go through this, because this is part of what we are doing here, is unlocking this stuff. I think this is a slide that's worth screenshotting. Text models like ChatGPT do these things well, and my advice for people, if they want to go explore how this can impact their personal lives, whether it has to do with direct teaching, supporting student wellness, supporting personal wellness, just finding ideas for what to do on date night with your partner on a Friday. Cross-reference what is here, what these technologies are good at, with what you do every day. Do an inventory of how you spent your time on a Thursday. Cross-reference it with these different styles of thinking and see, are there ways that you can start to experiment with this technology to help save you time and to help deepen your expertise. These are some use cases that we have identified for education that are ideas. They're jumping off points. For some veteran teachers, they're not necessarily going to resonate because their GPT has so much in there that it's going to be difficult for anyone else to come up with a better idea than what they can come up with on their own. But for the rest of us, there are a ton of different ways that this can be used, in the same way that there are a ton of different things that you could walk down the hallway to the teacher's lounge and ask the other teachers for help on. And it just depends on who those other teachers are. And this is why we encourage people to get to know the tech and what you need help with. who do you trust to give you advice about classroom management versus who do you trust to give you advice about science content? Those are going to be different ways to use these tools. This is another one that we have that is talks about the potential benefits in AI, in addition to the potential risks. Again, this is something I think is worth screenshotting. We're not going to get into this like too much, but I do want to frame this in a different way. This is curiosity and skepticism, right? Like these are the risks of AI, and you should be skeptical about its bias. You should be skeptical about using it too much and losing your ability to critically think. About plagiarism. I mean, there's a lawsuit going on right now, but the New York Times is suing OpenAI because they basically just scraped the internet of data, a lot of it copyrighted, and just put it into their model. Did they pay for that? No. And then there's privacy concerns. If you do come out of this webinar with one thing to be very skeptical about, it's we don't know where this data is going, so don't put any personal data in there. I had something really creepy to me happen the other day. I was doing a workshop and I asked ChatGPT to give me advice about how I could deal with some behavior issues that I've had creeping up with one of my kids. Being kind of defiant and not following directions, not being respectful. And it did this thing where it was like memory. And I was like, what? And it had made a memory of me. I clicked on it and it was like, has a son who is defiant. And it put that into its memory of me. I think this is for the paid version, but I was just like, whoa. I didn't put my son's name in there. I did put his age. I was just like, I don't think I want this machine to know that about me yet, right? Like we hardly know each other, and so it's just one of those ways in which I think that it's important to be skeptical about this technology.
And Seth, if I can jump in really quick, actually,
yeah,
I think this is really important. If you could go back to that slide. Yeah. So this goes up, Grant, in the chat. He said, are there wellness benefits to AI beyond saving time? And I think this is really central to your to the framing, both for your own self and as you use it, but also as you communicate with other people. So look at those top lines, right? These seem like, a lot of, well, there's content creation of various sorts. Then there's the tutoring and personalized learning. But look at them one by one and think about it. When we speak of wellness, we have teacher wellness. And what makes you happy is going to probably be what makes your kids, reach their standards, be happier in the classroom, be successful, right? And then there's also the personal wellness stuff that you have to think of. But thinking about it from this, put it in the student's perspective. And we could spend hours talking about the challenges that students are facing and get into some real nitty gritty about student wellness. But just think about you applying those things on the top and think about what it does for a student. I mentioned engagement as an issue. We can kind of keep that at the top, but there's a lot of other ones. Content development and differentiation. Reaching students who we struggle to reach. It is so quick and easy to take assessments, to take study guides and level them for learners of various types. If you do that already, a lot of teachers do, and that's awesome. But if you're trying to budget your time, because it's always limited, and you're able to do that very quickly, and you're giving a student who's struggling a more leveled piece of material, they are going to understand it. They are going to be more engaged with it. They are going to reach their objectives. They're going to feel better about themselves. Assessment design. I talked about, design assessments around student interest. They're going to be enjoying that more. It actually impacts their wellness. When they are laughing and smiling, if you use Adobe Photoshop and you made a quick photoshopped image that aligns with some not silly interest, but an interest of theirs, right? They love, it's about ecosystems, and you do a quick AI of LeBron James in a desert ecosystem. And there's the question. It takes you a minute, and the kids are smiling and they're invested in what you're doing. Tutor, personalized learning. Same thing. I think that's pretty clearly, clear student benefits there. Creativity, all of these things. Each of these things, it's a mindset of thinking about, I'm not just doing this for myself, because we're the ones using these tools. And so we think it's for us. But when you get down to it, the end result is that the student is benefiting. And that really leads to wellness. And we haven't even hit on the SEL stuff, which we will. I think that's what a lot of us think of when we think of wellness. We think of social and emotional learning. But I'm talking about the day-to-day objectives and learning that happens in the classroom. We can make the classroom more exciting, more engaging, and the students are going to buy into that. So that's really at the heart of what we think of the framing around wellness for this. So I just wanted to address that.
Yeah, thank you. I think Valerie kind of summarized what you're saying there. Positive emotion leads to less stress and better learning outcomes and collaborations as well. So that's another element here. I did put in the chat, which do you spend the most time on, right? So of these, that top row, just in the chat real quick as a number, content development, differentiation, assessment design, and timely effective feedback, creativity, collaboration, and skill development, operational and administrative duties. Just give us some numbers here. Which ones do you spend the most time on? We've got 1, 3, and 4 so far. Oh, 4. All right. Operational and administrative duties. Another screenshot here. These are 30 AI tools to use in the classroom. You can investigate some of these. In the meantime, we are going to play with Magic School. So Magic School is one that is designed especially for teachers. You can have a free trial, and I know that a lot of schools have signed up for these as well. We have a couple people who did like content development, so we can see if we can see like a content development one here. But basically, all of these tools are like, it's things that you might be looking for, right? So in your planning, if you want to generate a lesson plan, if you want to do a project-based learning thing, if you want to generate a unit plan, right? These are all different ways that you can, all tools that you can do for these different specific things within content development. Let's see what it says for content. Rubric generator, academic content, informational tests. We're just going to click on one of these. Let's click on generating a rubric. So it'll have you do your grade level. Let's say this is like a 10th grade student. The standard or objective, the students will be able to, who's got an objective? Who's got an objective for me? Students will be able to, let's see, what's like a science objective that we're working on right now? Understand the impact of water filtration systems on oceans. Assignment title, it might be create your own water filtration system. Assignment description, this is a little too involved. I'll just see what I can. What students will design their own filtration systems and demonstrate the impact on the cleanliness of oceans and survival of ocean species. Point scale, we'll say it's on a 4-point scale, and we'll generate. Obviously, I did not put all that much information in there. I'm doing this all on the fly with you, but check it out. That's a rubric, right? Now, a teacher with deep experience is going to look at this rubric and at first be like, oh, wow, look, that looks great. And then as they read it more, they're probably going to find some issues with it. And you might say something like, this does not have enough information around the components of water filtration systems. And you can have it adjust the rubric based on that feedback, right? So that is just one of like the many, many, many examples in Magic School. This is, again, a resource that is just for teachers. So if you are intimidated by the open box of a ChatGPT, where it's just like, how can I help you today? Magic School is a great place to start. So we played with
and
that.
To be clear, just to jump in there, just so you guys are aware, Magic School is one example. They all do this. If you go to the FAQ of Magic School, it will tell you they use ChatGPT, they use Google Gemini, they use Anthropic's Claude. So they use available LLMs that you guys can use for free, and they use them as the back end. So they just decided to monetize it by making it sort of simpler, like the way Seth was showing you. You can just kind of plug things in boxes. But you can do all of this through ChatGPT or whatever on your own without those. And that's the same for pretty much all of these. So keep that in mind. I mean, just out of your own curiosity, some of them eventually will sort of build their own AIs, but almost 99% of them are using the publicly available. They pay ChatGPT for access, and then they build a website around it.
Yep. There is another resource here. I interviewed someone on my podcast named Julie Smith. She has a list. That list is obscenely long. And I will copy this in the chat, but it is just a spreadsheet with some highlighted things. that she recommends. But the content areas are all of these different content areas. Again, I'm going to put this in here. And that's a fantastic episode. Julie Smith is an expert in media literacy. And so she has all of those things. Those are great resources to explore as well. So the best metaphor I've heard here is having these tools is like having 10,000 interns. This is because it will do a whole bunch of work for you, but you have to give it very clear instructions and you have to check its work, because that's what 10,000 interns would do. Here's some other advice, right? And again, this is something that you kind of, even though it is not a human and it's important to understand, it is simply predicting the next word, and therefore it is a machine. This is not your friend. This is technology. But unlike the press a button and get out a response, there are some things that it will do, many things that it will do that other technologies don't do, and so we have to approach it differently. We have to check its bias. I found the most helpful way to do that is to check your own bias as you are getting results, and then also to explicitly ask it to check its bias for this and this and that, right? This is getting information. It is trained on information that is biased because our culture is biased, right? And so I think it's actually a profound opportunity for us to check our own bias as we're using these tools, to know that like we need to have that in our mindset when we get any answers from any media. And so I think that it kind of helps train us to know that bias is out there and that we should be aware of it. Ask it, be critical, ask it to improve based on its critique of your response. You've seen us demonstrate this a couple of times here today. If it gives you Travis and I do these workshops, and it's funny because I'll be like, yeah, I kind of didn't like that answer. And Travis will be like, just tell it to do it better in the way that you're critiquing it, to do it better. And I'm like, oh yeah. And then he'll be demonstrating. He's like, yeah, this is not good for this and this and that. And I'll be like, just tell it to do it better. And so it's something that even when you're using it, you kind of forget that if you don't like the answer, just ask it to improve the answer. And then another pro tip, if you've lost the plot, if it's like you've tried it 5 or 6 times and it's not getting somewhere, start over, right? Start with a new chat. Get to know these tools, get to know what they are good for, especially in the context of your life. It is not about getting the right answer out of AI. It's about AI helping you get the right answer, right? The right answer out of you. And I think that that's a helpful way of thinking about it.
And all of those things, those 5 things, we go back to that, or you don't have to go back, Seth, but the idea of 10,000 interns, aren't these the things that we would sort of, if we had an intern, we would be doing the same things to that. So this is where, right, interacting with this, it's weird to think, I'm not going to call it human, and it's not human yet. It's very close. And so we have to think about it like that. We would, if we had an intern, we would want to know what that intern's biases are for the responses that they give us. We'd want to get to know it, right? We want to be critical. We'd listen to what it says and we would give some feedback on it. And we'd recognize that it's there to help. We are the teacher, it's there to help. So it truly is like having a person, and that's how we should think about it and talk about it, and just know that it won't really ever get mad at you. At least not right now. It won't get mad at you. I guess it can get mad at you if you talk bad. If you talk mean to it, it does respond.
And if you tell it to be mad at you, it'll be mad at you. Sure. Imagine you are angry. You are an angry person responding to, just give it those kind of framings. Again, this is the place to start, but you can also go to things called prompt libraries. And this is what we're going to get into a little bit when we talk about direct impact on wellness. There was an episode of my podcast with Margot Toppin. She's a person who did a deep dive for Castle, I believe, on the impact of AI on SEL. And she's got a prompt library that she created with AI for Education. And I'm going to pull up that prompt library here and put it in the chat as well. So this is stuff for direct impact on SEL. It can explain SEL concepts. There's explicit SEL instruction that it can help you with, conflict resolution, role play. All of these are different ways that you can impact wellness directly. This is like the sort of golden resource. If you bring away anything from this talk today, please bring away this resource and play with it, experiment, see what's in there. I'm going to do the conflict resolution role play. So with a Prompt library, what you want to do is you want to copy this, just straight up copy it into one of these tools. So it says here, and I'll put this bigger, you are an expert educator. That's the framing we've given it, so that it's taking its full body of text and narrowing it into the text that is from expert educators. With expertise in social and emotional learning, narrowing it further. And the CASTLE framework, narrowing it even further. Skilled in helping your students learn to navigate conflict. Your task is to create, and now this is where I'm going to put in, I don't know, 3 detailed role-playing scenarios for my, we'll call it, I work with students in Taiwan. So I'm going to say 7th grade students in Taiwan. So maybe it'll add some cultural context there. To help them practice describe difficult situations. So I would say navigating one team member not pulling their weight in group work. Include guidance on facilitating the role play and include a reflection question for students to engage with after completing the activity. So this prompt is giving me all these good ideas of what I should ask for when it comes to coming up with a role-playing scenario. And as you can see, we've got, this one's called the unequal contribution. It's got guidance for facilitating the role play, which is exactly what I asked it for. It's got some reflection questions. Here's another role play scenario. Your group is working on a history project about ancient civilization. Each member needs to research and present information about a different civilization. However, one member, let's call her May, has been, they did the cultural part there, has been absent from school due to illness and hasn't been able to contribute to the project. The rest of the group is concerned about how to proceed without May's input. Assign roles based on the scenario provided. I'm going to say that I feel like these examples don't give enough insight as to what the actual conflict is and how the students might be feeling. So we'll just see if it gives me something different based on that. Oh, it told me I'm right. Thanks, ChatGPT. And providing more content and insight into the conflict and the feelings of the students may help the role playing, right? And so in this situation, seems disinterested in the project, right? Some are feeling frustrated, right? So it took my cues and it helped to improve what I had going on based on my feedback. When I did this prompt library with a group of guidance counselors, they were like, "Oh my God, I was just the other day trying to come up with a role play scenario for this situation and that situation," right? I mean, this can be used in real time where you have 2 kids come in and they're like, "This thing happened," and you're like, "Let me put this prompt into the chatbot right now with those little tiny pieces of information that you just gave me, and now let's do this thing." So this is one way that it can be used in real time for things like that. That is one example of this chatbot. This prompt library. There are a ton more, right? And it even gives you example prompts of how to teach SEL directly, right? So I'll put that one into Claude, and it's going to give me a whole bunch of information. And what we're hoping to do here is kind of flip the script a little bit and change your mindset around what these tools can be used for. There's a sense that it's very, if you're a teacher and you're using this, it's for academic purposes. But SEL is a content area that has exploded in popularity and necessity just within the past few years. There aren't a lot of teachers who have decades of experience in SEL that make them the only GPT that they would ever want to rely on. Instead, there's a whole army of teachers out there who've been given some training, have some experience, but otherwise understand what the best practices should be, but don't always understand how to get there. And this is where these types of resources can be extremely valuable for addressing specific situations, right? These are not how do I approach this in general? It's hey, this exact thing is going on. What can I do about that? So I think it's super, super powerful. this is the point where you would explore, but I think we're almost out of time, so you're not going to do that, but I encourage you to explore that on your own, and I put that link in the chat. One more resource I'd like to talk about is, I'm just a fan of this one. It's called Alongside. It's a chatbot for mental health to be used in junior high and high school. It basically, the idea is that most guidance counselors are, 90% of their time is taken up by high flyers, but we have a mental health epidemic going on in the country, and there are a bunch of kids who need help. The kids who need help, they want a space that is judgment-free, and they want it to be available 24/7. Enter the room AI, or in this case, a little llama. And what this does is it's an app. It goes through the school subscribes to it. They the first interactions are AI based, where it's just kind of getting a sense of like what the problem is, and then it refers them to a module, a wellness module about how they can deal with that issue. And if there are situations that are that need to be referred up to the counselor, it will automatically do that. Any suicidal thoughts or anything like that, any thoughts of self-harm and other examples. So I'm a huge fan of this. And again, my podcast with Scott Frisket is coming out soon, and illuminates that with the help of an assistant principal, a district rep in the Massachusetts area. So that is another way that AI is impacting wellness, and there are a lot of these tools coming out. To wrap up, what we are talking about here is a relationship, and the mindset with which you can approach that relationship is one of curiosity plus skepticism equals growth. Without those two, you're going to either end up in a place where you're naively digesting everything that this says, or you're not going to use it at all. And rather, it's about experimentation and figuring out how it can best be used for you. I'm wondering, no, we've got 2 minutes left. No, I'm not wondering that. I am wondering that. But
I'm not going to kick you off the lawn. I'm not going to kick you off the lawn. Okay. We'll pause at the top of the hour just in case anybody does have a hard stop, so I can say thank you and all that. But I'm not kicking anybody out, so feel free to linger a moment.
Awesome, thank you. I'm wondering aha moments, right? Whether they be about AI in general when you first became curious about it, or anything that happened today during our session where you were like, oh, wow, yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of that before. I'd love to hear your aha moments around AI as you put them in the chat. Mine happened several years ago when I read a blog post, which I'll put in the chat, called Wait But Why, and it was talking about human progress through time and the implication that we are at this hockey stick moment, where the rate of change is accelerating. And I think that that's when I was looking at AI and I was like, oh wow, like this is happening. And in order to even be able to understand what's going on now, I have to stay on top of this. It's got to be something that I need to learn about and know about, because the rate of change is changing so quickly. So that was my aha moment, my like initial curiosity around AI. Valerie, what was yours? Oh, sorry.
I'm over here directing traffic, and I was paying attention to them. I heard the question. I think similar. I think in some ways similar. And I was thinking back to a conversation we had in a previous session about AI, and a professor was commenting. Well, he leads an instructional design team, among other things, and he was talking about he needed to pay a little. They had to have a little pain now. They were already very, very, very busy, but he made the intentional choice to say, you all have the 20%, whether you want to use the Google 20% rule or whatever. But he gave them all, I think it was about 20% of their time. And he said, you need to go spend time here, because if you don't, like yes, we're busy and yes, whatever, but I have to I'll go explain the deadlines and whatever. I need you to have time to do this, because if you don't, you're going to be so far behind by the time, we have time to look at it. He's like, no, we have to have the time now. And
yeah.
So I think that was one of mine, was just, I do that naturally. I have a 20% sort of rule for myself, for my business. But I think that's yeah, that's always my takeaway for people is start now with something, little something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Best day to plant a tree is 20 years ago. Second best day is today.
That's it.
Yeah. I put some more information about our PDs. This was a little teaser. We have a 6-hour workshop that can be divided up. However, that can be used for teachers of all levels, but particular interest to like guidance counselors, elementary school teachers, but also to junior high and high. Travis, what was your your aha moment around AI?
Well, at the beginning, I didn't remember exactly. Am I there? Yeah. Can you hear me?
No, yeah. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. It was when GPT-3 came out, and I was unsure about the dates, but yeah, it was around 2020. So it was about 4 years ago when that very first version came out. It didn't really hit the big fanfare. That was 3.5. But typing it and having it respond in this human-like way, just as sort of, again, a tech enthusiast. I mean, I just saw immediately how I had never seen anything like that. It was just so fun. And I love fun technology. So it was literally just using it for the very first time was just the wow. This is going to be wild.
Awesome. Well, thank you to everyone for coming today, for sharing your lunch hour with us. Maybe it was lunch, and for learning more about this. We feel the potential of this is enormous, and we know that it's really hard to be a teacher right now, and we believe that this is a tool unique to the world that has the ability to impact the job satisfaction of teachers in an extremely significant way. So we're happy that you were here today to learn more about it.
And I want to applaud all you guys for being here. I want to say one quick thing, right? We're all here amazed at what it can do. Magic School is powered by ChatGPT 4. I just saw a news little brief. Sam Altman, the founder, right, of the company that made ChatGPT 4, today said that, I'm just reading it directly, that GPT-4 is the dumbest model that any of you will ever have to use again by a lot. So it just speaks to the rapid pace that we're going to go. And you guys are here and seeing it now, and that's awesome. And you're building the mindset where it's going in 5 years from now. My goodness, it's wild. But glad you guys are here at the beginning.
We'll all have AI friends.
We will. That is.
There's actually a pretty interesting video yesterday by Nicholas Thompson. If any of you follow him, he's the editor of the Atlantic magazine, formerly at Wired, and that was actually what his video was sort of about yesterday. He does the most interesting thing in tech video each day, and he was talking about newscasters and whether or not you could replace a newscaster with an AI avatar. Because is it just delivering some content, and you could put an avatar out there. And he'd had a discussion at one of these big AI summits and whatever with a bunch of smart people, and they kind of came back to something you kind of were touching on at the beginning, which was not right now, because we still want that human connection, and people make a connection with a news anchor. Like we know them, and we don't know them, but we know them. But what if we started to have some of these AI friends, I'll put that in the quotes, AI friends that maybe are social media avatars, and people started to be exposed to them, and they did feel like they sort of got to know them, and then they built a relationship that way, and then it became more organic, and then again for a different generation to have a different experience, and that seems perfectly normal. I mean, a lot of people thought online dating was weird, but
yeah,
you can't do that online. You can't, you can't, that's not real people. And that's, so I mean, yeah, it's kind of interesting. So I thank you both so much for being here today. As always, that's why, see, back by popular demand, I said that. I took a gazillion notes, and that's why I was like, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll answer your question just a second. I'm over here scribbling. I was making a note to put the link to your podcast in the replay so that people can get to it easily. So that was
and I just put a link to our podcast episode where I interviewed you. Thank you so much again for the time and opportunity. We really appreciate it. We love what you guys are doing over at USDLA with these the webinar series. Looking forward to some of the upcoming ones as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, Thank you, everybody, for attending and for all our future viewers out there on our YouTube channel. I will stop the recording, but again, I don't just kick people out. If anybody has questions for me, for anything, I'll hang out for a few minutes with everybody. So we'll see you next time.